boats have capsized for like the 18th time, so I think they're giving up. They went back to get the oars. Oh, wow, this guy has the boat. I think these birds eat very good around here. I've been out paddleboarding for an hour way in the back and finally just came in. I was hoping he would have gotten eaten by a shark, but guess not. We'll see what happens. Well, I hope that you enjoyed my day trip to the beach. I live about an hour from the shore and it wasn't that warm, so I do plan to go again in about a week or so and hopefully have another nice relaxing day. But we're gonna talk about some books now. This week I wanted to highlight some Black excellence. So all of the books I'll be speaking about will include Black authors or Black characters. So one book that I was reading, I actually read this at the beach, is called Skin of the Sea, which this is easily one of the most beautiful book covers I think I have ever seen. And the dedication by the author, Natasha Bowen, is beautiful as well. It says, "To my mom who couldn't read very well but made sure I did." Very beautiful. But this book is actually a duology. The next book comes out in September of this year. And this is a YA fantasy that is steeped very rich in African folklore and mythology. And it is set in the 15th century, towards the beginning of the slave trade. And a very common practice, unfortunately, during that time is when Africans were sick or died or punishment or whatever, they would just throw them off the boat and drown them. So this fantasy starts with Semidil, who is a Mamiwata, which in African culture translates to mother of the sea, essentially a mermaid. And what she does is she trails these Portuguese ships and collects the souls of the Africans that are thrown overboard in order to help bless them in their transition and journey over to the creator. Now, Semidil longs to be human as well and thinks a lot about her former life when she was human. One day she finds a boy that has been thrown overboard and she saves him, which she was not supposed to do. And the gods tell her that she needs to ask for forgiveness from the creator, otherwise it will upset the balance and doom all the Mamiwata. So her and Kola travel on this dangerous journey in order to find these very powerful rings to keep them out of the hands of a very dangerous god. And she is looking to find these rings so that she can utilize them to seek forgiveness from the creator and also to save Kola's family. Now, this book sparked a lot of emotion from me just from the content and the history of the book. But I felt that it was well written, it was very sympathetic, and it had a lot of sadness and joy. But not just the setting, but also some of the characters. I thought the characterization of many of these characters was absolutely awesome. And there were some points that I really wanted to cry because I felt so much for the characters. I really liked the incorporation of the African language and folklore, and even though there were some words in here, it didn't detract from you being able to read this as a complete story and understand it. But overall, good book. It may be sad, but it's definitely entertaining and held my attention, and I definitely look forward to reading more. Now, the next book I have is called The Deep. This little book packs a lot in such a small book. Now, this is a Black historical fantasy that goes along the same lines of Africans being thrown overboard during the slave trade. However, in this book, you have a community on the seafloor called the Wajaruru that are descendants from pregnant African slaves. And they have built a very thriving community below the sea.
and they live in blissful ignorance of their history, except for one person in their community called the historian. And here you have Yetu. And Yetu is tasked with carrying the entire history of this population. And once a year, there is a remembrance ceremony in which Rajanu tells them their history so that they can live it, because they are yearning from their history and they are lost without it. But it is a burden to carry that each and every day. So that burden has been put on Yetu, who suffers. Now, at the remembrance ceremony, Yetu chooses to run away after imparting the memories on others because she does not want to continue to carry that burden. And she realizes that it's not that easy to accept who you are and create a future for yourself without knowing your past, no matter how tragic that is. I thought that this book was highly original. I thought it was beautifully told, and it was sad yet optimistic with a little bit of romance in the end. Now, this book does speak of the ugly history of slavery and how that does create a burden for whole groups of people. However, it's still a history that needs to be remembered and needs to be preserved, because if you don't know where you came from, you can't know where you need to go. But it does warn about letting that history and that knowledge consume you, and how that can have dangerous consequences. It also speaks about how you accomplish so much more working together than as individuals. But this was a great book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, this next book is called The Me You Love in the Dark. Now, this is not written by a black author. However, the ghost is black, and so is one of the main characters, which is the agent. So I figured I would include it. This is a graphic novel. Pretty quick read. It is about an artist who rents a supposed haunted house, and she starts to develop a friendship and a romance with the ghost in the house, and gets in a little bit over her head. This was funny, it was quick, it was entertaining, and it was dark. I really enjoyed it. I think reading this will make me probably start to, look at some more graphic novels. Gave it a chance and it worked out. Now, the next book is called Sloth. Now, this one I read on my Kindle. Sloth is erotic fantasy. It is about a married couple, and the husband basically calls the wife out on not performing some of her wifely duties, and she gets on the ball. I thought that the book was quick. It has a little bit of a funny part, and I felt that it was sexy and was very realistic in when people get complacent in relationships and stop doing the things that they used to do. That don't mean your spouse don't want it, but good book, worth a read. So, and the last book that I read is called The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Lavelle. And this book is actually a different version of a book called The Horror at Red Hook by H.P. Lovecraft that was produced in 1927. However, this book is written from the black man's perspective. The Ballad of Black Toms is set in the 1920s. You have Tommy Tester, who is a 21-year-old black man that is a hustler. He's doing what he needs to do. He's making money, trying to take care of his father. And he encounters an older white man that tells him that he wants to partner with him to help awaken the sleeping king, who will in turn get rid of all of his oppressors and make him rich. Meanwhile, there's this detective that is on his tail with some sort of curiosities of his own. Now, this book is steeped in racism and in the racism culture that is prevalent in that time period, where black people are very limited to where they can be in New York, mainly just in Harlem. This book shows how certain individuals use minorities and prey on them for their own agenda. There was the N-word used once, but there is thorough use of the term Negro throughout the book, which was common during that time. Overall, I thought this was a very interesting yet sad story, and it held my attention throughout the entire book. Job well done. Now, those are all the books that I read this week. I thoroughly enjoyed some unique perspectives. There were some books that I think only a Black author can tell, and I think, well, those are all the books that I read this week. However, I didn't speak about the products that I got. So this product right here is called Waku. It is a probiotic herbal tea, and it's pretty good. This is blueberry. It's a bit sweet, so I like to cut it with some seltzer, but it gets your gut right. It's 45 calories, 2 grams of sugar, so not that bad. And another really interesting product, I use this a lot in the summertime. It's a facial mist. It just helps soothe your skin a little bit. Maybe if you're breaking out or if you're a little bit too sunburnt, you just spray your skin just a little bit. This is really cool to stick inside of your cooler, and that way you can spray yourself and have a nice cool mist when you're standing outside too much. Well, that is it for me. I hope that you're able to get out and have a great day and do something fun, and hopefully at least sometime this summer you get to go to the beach. I look forward to going again next week. So have a good day. Bye-bye.